Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds of scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like towers. Ride the wave to fame, flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gamble, and hustle. Money moves so gritty, cashing tickets every Friday. Life looking pretty, ride the wave. Feel the rush, hit the game. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit banging, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets, feel.
On a suddenly not so casual Friday in November, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 10, November 1st, 2024, the final month of the college football regular season, the Shark and the Gun, right here live on Sharky Waters Nation, X and YouTube, and the GunzPicks channel. Come on over to the chat, crack a beer, hang out with us. Guns has a beautiful hat on. It's a beautiful night. Guns, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, I'm wearing this Signetti special, as you can see, for the Indiana Hoosiers. Made me a ton of money, and I got to show some respect for the GOAT himself, Signetti. But we're here to talk about the Week 10 college football, man. This season is rolling. It's too fast for us, but we've been cooking with absolute napalm on the plays. Hopefully you've been tailing some of this stuff because we will continue to keep dominating college football as the data gets plentiful. Shark, let's get into it.
Data is certainly plentiful in Week 10, and we open up tomorrow, Saturday, November 2nd, 2024. Saturdays are for sending it. Big Ten football, high noon in Illinois. Minnesota on the road, a revenge game against a situationally hot Illinois team. The Gun is not buying Illinois this week. Minnesota -3, the first official of Week 10.
Yeah, I'm off the Illini train for this one. We're going to be going with the Gophers, and let me tell you why. Listen, you have a Minnesota team coming into this game on a 3-game conference win streak, absolutely heating up after losing their first 2-game conference games to Iowa and Michigan. On the other side, you have an Illinois team that got brutally beaten by Oregon on the road 38-9. They're 6-1 straight up on the year in their previous 7 games besides that one. And then you got to look at Illinois. Like I said, they are 6-2. However, the performance versus conference opponents is a little bit misleading, right? Their wins were against Nebraska, a bad Purdue team, which they almost lost that game, and where Illinois actually gave up 49 points to that bad Purdue team. And then a Michigan team that has been changing quarterbacks, and it was just in a bad spot for them. They were -55 net yards in that game with a +3 turnover ratio. So a little bit misleading outcomes there with Illinois' strength. Illinois has lost the net yardage battle in 3 out of the last 4 conference games. It's not going to bode well going against the Gophers, where their strength is their pass defense. They're ranked 15th in opposing pass yards per play, 10th in pass yards per game, and 2nd in opposing INT thrown percentage. So they're ball hawkers too, and they get after it. They consistently win the turnover battle because of this. Then you got to look at Illinois. Biggest problem on the defensive side is their weak run defense. They've been absolutely gashed, especially in conference, giving up 5 yards per carry and more than 200 rushing yards to their conference opponents in 3 out of the last 4 games. So this is a bad rush defense. And of course, you got the revenge angle, right? Minnesota, 3X revenge type situation here. Last year, they lost to Illinois 27-26 as 2-point home dogs, very narrowly close. So you know this Minnesota Gopher team remembers. And now you see the line swing with Minnesota being a favorite on the road. What? That is line functionality at its finest here. Of course, Minnesota 2-0 ATS on the road this year and 4-0 ATS as a favorite this year as well. Illinois is a ranked team too, folks. They're 24th in the country, and you see them as a home dog going up against an unranked away favorite. It's everything we love, and the line shifted on me. I bought it earlier in the week at -1.5. It's up to -3 right now. Still good at -3. Get it at the key number right now because I guarantee that line will shift back up on Saturday. Give me Minnesota -1.5, -3 as the play.
Absolutely love it. My first play, SEC football, 12:45 p.m. A continued buy element, a buy team, taking Vanderbilt, the Commodores, at +7.5 for 1 unit. And when I started to go through this, I thought to myself, Is Vanderbilt too hot? Because they are scorching hot. I don't think so. I think this is a classic environment where you have to zoom out to understand when a team catches upward movement off a previous 5-17 sample, they're supposed to continue upward movement to a 500 average against the spread. And this is just the environment in terms of a coach and a quarterback you want to consistently buy. This coach, Clark Lee, fullback for Vanderbilt, an alumnus, just an absolute dog, a great psychological motivator, and transfer quarterback Diego Pavia from New Mexico State, a dog in his own right and functioning fantastically as an underdog this year against big-time Power 5 schools, going 5-0 ATS, outright wins against Va Tech, tight overtime loss at Mizzou, beating outright number 1 at the time, Alabama, 40-35. Came back off that, a supposed letdown. No, sir. 20-13 win at Kentucky. And then came back last week, lost by 3 points at home versus Texas. Their off an outright loss makes it even better. They're 2-0 ATS this year following an outright loss. And you go to the Auburn side of this game, Auburn is the absolute definition of polarization. They're 0-3 ATS at home versus Power 5 schools. They're 3-0 ATS road versus conference opponents. And you find a great spot to fade Auburn. 3 consecutive weeks on the road. Covered week 6 at Georgia. Covered week 8 at Mizzou. And won outright last week at Kentucky. They're way too hot. They're not very good at home. And final point on this, you get a revenge game. Last year, Vanderbilt did take a home loss to Auburn, 31-15. Key point there, books did have a grip on the line. Auburn was a strong road favorite, minus 11.5, and did win and cover that strong line. Now they come home shorter at open, minus 5.5. This speaks numerically to everything I just said. I have Vanderbilt to win this game outright by 4 points, and it is an opportunity to dominate. Going back to the gun, 3:30, Sun Belt football, taking Marshall at home against ULM, a ULM team that burned me last week, played well in the first half, completely fell off the grid, now has to play back-to-back road games. The gun is honed in on it. Marshall in West Virginia, the mountains, at minus 10.5.
Yeah, I got to give a little shout out to the chat before I get into the play. We got LVCC in the building here on a Friday already night. Need my fellas. And of course, Justin, a.k.a. Stacks himself, McIvy in the building, Shark in the gun. And he loves, and LVCC loves the Gopher Love. Let's get it. But let's talk about a little UL Monroe and the Marshall team here. Joan C. Edwards Stadium, Huntington, West Virginia. 3:30 is the kick. And you have a Marshall team that's 4-3 on the year and off a bye. So they are well rested and well prepared for this one with a plus 4 point differential, minus 15 net yard average, though. However, they're going against a UNLM team that is 46 and off a 46-17 loss to South Alabama on the second leg, road back-to-back. And they are 5-2 on the year with a minus 2 point differential and minus 74 net yard average. Now, what this is home away split type of capping here, folks. So you look at Marshall, they play well versus conference opponents and at home for Marshall, plus 20 point differential, plus 73 net yard average. They're 4-0 straight up in ATS at home. Then you look at Marshall versus conference opponents, plus 10 point differential, minus 47 net yard average. They're 2-1 straight up in ATS overall, but they are 2-0 ATS versus conference at home. Then you got to look at a ULM. They just have not played well on the road this season. They have a minus 24 point differential, minus 182 net yard average, 1-2 straight up in ATS on the road this season. And then what's ULM's weakest issue as far as the defensive side is their rush defense. On the road, they give up 265 yards and 5.5 yards per carry. They are ranked 95th in opposing rush yards per carry and 116th in opposing rush yards per game. And guess what Marshall loves to do? They're a run-first offense, especially at home when they put up 258 rushing yards per game and 6.8 yards per carry. Marshall is ranked 19th in the country in rush yards per carry and 13th in rush yards per game. So this plays exactly into what Marshall wants to do. And of course, you look at ULM, 6-10 ATS as away dog since 2022. And you got a Marshall team ATS-wise, 7-3 ATS in their last 10 games at home, and they're 5-2 ATS as a home favorite. Marshall is a double-digit favorite and has a worse record than ULM. That is a high indicator to me here, folks. We are going to be taking Marshall here, so give me Marshall minus 10.5 as the play.
Staying in the Sun Belt, 2:30 in Boone, North Carolina, Kid Brewer Stadium. We're brewing great stuff for the road team here. Taking Old Dominion at minus 2.5 for 1 unit. And Old Dominion is really what you would call a repeat team from last year. And we're so obsessed nowadays with the law of averages, reversal, bounce back, revenge game, all this stuff. I was going through Old Dominion's calendar before, and I was pretty blown away at how much they just repeat almost identically what happened from last year, this year. I'll go through it very briefly. Last year, they lost on the road to Vatech, 36-17. This year, they lost at home to Vatech, 37-17. Almost the same exact score. Last year against Coastal Carolina, they lost by 4. This year, they lost by 8. Georgia Southern last year, they won. Revenge game, Georgia Southern this year? I don't think so. They beat Georgia Southern down again. Georgia State, they beat them last year. This year, they beat Georgia State. So if they beat you last year, they're going to beat you again this year. And what happened last year with App State? Well, they beat App State 28-21 as 5.5-point home dogs. Sitting here talking about line functionality in conference. App State favored on the road, minus 5.5. Comes down shorter at home, opening -2. Significant market steam to Old Dominion. Old Dominion should win this game by 5 to 7 points minimum. You look at the App State side of this game, this is kind of an old news team at this point, in my opinion. This quarterback's been here for a couple years. They're very inconsistent. The product is not very good, ultimately. It's very much middle to bottom level Sun Belt football here for App State this campaign. 3-4 straight up. But if you look at their 3 wins, highly unimpressive. FCS, East Tennessee State in the opener, didn't even cover the spread. Slightly later on, backdoored ECU, was down significantly, 16 points in the first half, barely got there, 21-19. And most recently, last week, beat Georgia State. Georgia State is 0-4 in Sun Belt play, bottom in the conference, highly unimpressive. And App State is 0-2 ATS this year, off a previous outright win, with an average loss margin in those games by 40 points per game. I'm not saying Old Dominion is going to beat them by 40. Some of the opponents they got were elite opponents, but I think Old Dominion takes care of business here, gets the win and the cover on the road in Boone in week 10. Staying here, going towards the western coast of this country, Mountain West football, 4 o'clock. We got 2 picks in this game. Guns is looking at the side. I'm looking at the total. Wyoming visiting New Mexico. I'll throw it to the gun for the official on the side. New Mexico minus 7.5.
Yeah, I got to make sure I shout out my guy from the South, man. We got Bruno in the building. He's joining us from a different continent. Let's go into this play, though. We've got Wyoming in New Mexico at University Stadium. Albuquerque, New Mexico, 4 p.m. is the kick. And you have a New Mexico team coming off a 17-6 loss on the road, despite having a plus 119 net yard average for the game. They have won 3 out of their last 4 games, though. And they're going against a Wyoming team that's just having a rough season. A little transition to a new coach and transition of personnel and everything in between. They're 1-7 on the year, and their only win was against Air Force. And if you've done any research, you know how bad the Air Force is this season. They have a minus 12. Wyoming team has a minus 12 point differential, minus 106 net yard average on the year. And then Wyoming has a plus 0 point differential versus conference opponents this season, but 3 out of the 4 of their conference games have been at home. Now they're on the road here. When you look at Wyoming on the road, they have a minus 23 point differential, minus 268 net yard average, and versus G5 teams on the road, minus 18.5 point differential, minus 211 net yard average. So everything points to New Mexico here. And what does New Mexico love to do? They have an electric offense, but they need to run the football. They are 8th in rushing yards per carry and 8th in rushing yards per game. And you have a Wyoming defense that is ranked 107th in opponent rush yards per carry and 92nd in the country in opponent rush yards per game, but give up more on the road. They give up 6 yards per carry to opponents and 211 yards per game. Also got to look at New Mexico from an ATS standpoint. 3-0 ATS is a favorite this season, and their 3-1 ATS is a home favorite since 2022. And also, you got to look at the revenge angle. We love revenge angles when we look at these college teams. You have a New Mexico team that lost to Wyoming the last 2 meetings, but they are 4-1 ATS in the last 5 versus Wyoming. Last season, the game was lost 35-26. They are 14-point road dogs in that game. Now they're a 7.5 point favorite. You're talking about line swing? That's a huge one there, folks. It's just a New Mexico spot altogether. The line shift tells you everything you need to know. This is going to be a absolute by margin win here by the Lobos. Give me New Mexico minus 7.5 as the play.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. And jumping off it, I'm looking at the total, and we're going over 60.5. And it's everything Gunz said. This is really the polar opposite from what I am used to with Wyoming. Wyoming historically plays a really slow down, Leatherhead style pace football, really low scoring games. Not so much this year at all. 5-3 versus the over. Started 5-1, and I think a nice buy low. Actually 0-2 versus the over last 2, but situational outliers. A lot of yards in those games. Just small window mistakes, missed field goals, 4 and outs, and plus territory. This team was not trending to unders as some sort of regression. It was really outlierish stuff to find unders. And speaking of outliers, New Mexico is 6-2 versus the over this year. Last week, they went way under the total at Colorado State, 17-6. And you want to talk about an outlier total to a score sheet. There were 787 yards in that game, and the final score was 17-6. So you get to buy low now on New Mexico, where their previous 3 games averaged 91.3 points per game. This team plays no defense. Most of these opponents don't play any defense, and their lack of defense and offensive style makes the opponent play even more wide open than they want to. It kind of feeds into itself. And you go through the last couple seasons with these teams, they do play almost every year. Go back to 2022. The final score was 27-14 Wyoming in New Mexico. Just to give you guys a snapshot to how quickly the books are adjusting to expected overs. The last time they did play this matchup in New Mexico, the line was 36.5 for the total. It did go over and hit 41. And then last year, the books did move the line up to 40.5, suggesting that the points were not an outlier and more points were coming. They came 35-26 over, 840 total yards in that game. And now off last year's 40.5, they're moving it up to 60.5. That is a gigantic line jump. It's everything Gunz said. It's everything I said. I have this game to finish right around 81 points. 2 officials in this game, New Mexico minus 7.5 and the over 60.5. 8 o'clock. We got a couple games at 8 o'clock. Oddly enough on this week, I'm not entirely sure why. There's no late night games. The final kick time tomorrow is actually 8 p.m. And we do have action in 2 of them. Gunz is looking at SMU laying a hefty 7.5 points to a really hot Pittsburgh team, and a very noteworthy line. Gunz, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I got the opposite side of the line here. You can actually get -7s here, but I'm on the Mustangs against this Pittsburgh team. It's a telling story when you look at this line. You got a SMU team that is a 7-1 on the year and coming off that tight win. Maybe looking ahead to this game to Pittsburgh over beating Duke, and then you have Pitt. They're coming into this game undefeated. They haven't been beat yet. 7-0 on the year and off a blowout win over Syracuse. SMU is off to off a 3-game road trip and now back home for the first time in a month. So they're going to be pumped up for this game here, folks. Then you have Pitt started the season strong, but they've regressed in the last 2 games. You actually look at the box scores of this one, their offense has really suffered. 277 total yards of offense versus Cal at home, -58 net yard average. Still won the game. Then he put up 217 yards of total offense versus Syracuse at home. And it was -110 net yard average. They should have lost that game, but they didn't. They figured out how to get the W. Then you have Pitt, a team. What do they want to do? They want to pass the rock. They're ranked 23rd in pass play percentage, and they're 39th in pass completion percentage, 31 in pass yards per play, and 28th in passing yards per game. And they're going against a SMU defense that is just great at home. They're holding opponents to 315 yards of total offense at home, 4.9 yards per play, 2.7 yards per carry on the ground game, and under 100 yards rushing yards per game. And then SMU has a top 10 rush defense and a top 50 pass defense. They're actually top 10 in opponent pass completion percentage. So look for this defense to really step it up at home for the Mustangs. And then you just got to look at Pitt. They've just underperformed as a road dog. They're 1-5 ATS since 2022, losing by an average margin of 17.3 points per game, missing the cover by 11.8 points per game. So this is a perfect spot to be jumping on SMU, and you can tell by the line. Also, got to look at SMU, 8-2 ATS at home in their last 10 home games, and they're 7-2 ATS as a home favorite. Pitt is a heavy dog here for a reason. An undefeated team as egregious of a big dog against an SMU team that is just barreling through. Their quarterback's going to play in this one in Jennings. The running back's killing it. This SMU team, it will come out strong at home. Get it done, boys. Mustangs all day. Give me SMU -7.5. There's 7s on the board, so do some shopping. I got it at -7.5. That's my play.
Yeah, speaking of coming out well in the first half, my next play, going back to 3:30, we're going to Lincoln, Nebraska, and taking the Cornhuskers in the first half at -3.5. And when I was looking at this game, I was looking at what we always talk about, the splits, FanDuel usually being the sharpest tell. This split is not as big as some of the ones we've gone for in recent weeks. It's a -3.5 on a -6.5, which is 54%. But I started to really go through the situational analysis of this, and I love this play. Nebraska is 5-0 ATS in the first half at home against all different opponent types. They play great in this stadium early. UCLA is actually 3-0 ATS road first half versus Power 5 schools. So you would say to yourself, both teams are great. Why are we buying one versus the other? The 3-0 sample that UCLA has put on record here, they covered at LSU in week 4. LSU is 1-3 ATS first half at home. So that was not so much UCLA being good. LSU's poor there. They covered at Penn State in week 6. Penn State is 0-4 first half at home. And they covered last week at Rutgers in the first half. And Rutgers has been abysmal recently in the first half at home. 2-3 ATS first half on the season at home, but more recently, 2 duds early. So the moral of the story is UCLA is 3-0 ATS here in this spot against 3 teams that are 4-9 combined ATS first half at home. Friendly reminder, as I just mentioned, Nebraska is not 4-9. They're 5-0 in this spot. This is where they will jump on UCLA, which should be a continued fade spot of a Pacific team not at their highest level of quality this year under Chip Kelly. And I think this is really going to get some margin early here. So taking Nebraska at 3:30, -3.5 for 1 unit. First collab play of the broadcast, and it does happen to be the final kick time of the day, week 10, November 2nd. Going to Reno, Nevada, a pretty notorious land up there in northern Nevada. Certainly not Las Vegas, but the home of the Wolfpack. Throwing it to the gun, an official Nevada on the money line.
Yeah, I love this play. I think we're just going to take the winner and get the plus points on this one. Scrap the spread and just pick the winner. We have a Colorado State going on the road to face Nevada in McKay Stadium. Reno, Nevada, 8 p.m. is the kick. And then we have a Colorado State team that's 5-3 on the year with a -3 point differential, -36 net yard average. And then you have a Nevada team that is under 500, but they are nearly a pick 'em in this game. They're 3-6 on the year with a -3 point differential, -11 net yard average. So statistically, their numbers are better than Colorado State. Nevada's just a better home team than they are on the road. At home this season, they have a +5 point differential, +30 net yard average. They're 2-3 straight up, 3-2 ATS at home. And then you have a Colorado State team that is worse on the road than they are at home. They have a -18 point differential, -85 net yard average, 1-2 straight up, and 2-1 ATS on the road. But this is going to be picking a winner type of scenario here. Where we got Nevada's numbers overall this season, they're just better than Colorado State. and they face a tougher schedule. You look at the schedule toughness. Nevada's schedule is ranked 91st toughest so far, but Colorado State's is ranked 121st toughest. So take that with a little bit of grain of salt when you're looking at these two teams in this matchup. Then you have the 2X revenge angle here with Nevada. They lost to Colorado State 17-14 in 2022 and then 30-20 in 2023. Nevada, however, owns the ATS in this matchup, covering 5 out of the last 6 versus Colorado State. And then Nevada was an 11.5-point road dog last year versus Colorado State. And now they're sitting here at a 2.5, 2s on the board. I think when I initially bought it, it was at 1.5. I think Nevada wins this game outright, period. I think that the game's weighed as Nevada being favored by 2.5 points, and they are the dog here. So I think they just picked the wrong dog. It should be Colorado State, knowing how bad they play on the road, and we're getting some value here with Nevada. It's a revenge angle, line functionality, everything in between. Give me Nevada on the money line, plus 110 as the play.
Yeah, as I said, collab play. Jumping off that, I want to bring you back to a conversation we had going back a handful of weeks to week 4, when I took Nevada laying what seemed at the time to be a fairly egregious 9.5 points to Eastern Washington. And I went into the details about their coach, this guy, Jeff Choate, very noteworthy coach that did take Montana State within the FCS calendar from a total bottom feeder to really the promised land effectively. So what I have written down on my sheet here, he's a program builder. And there are certain guys that are going to win titles, national championships. There are other guys that are going to bounce around from school to school and find teams that have been in the complete scrap heap, and they're great at taking them from point 0 to point 1. And that's who this guy is. And this team is showcasing significant upward movement this year. And I think you have to really zone into spot specifics to find even more clarity. If you look at Nevada, they are 3-6 straight up. So the average Joe would say they stink. But you have to really go through what's going on here. On the road, they've been slightly worse. At home, they're 3-2 ATS. More importantly, they're 3-1 ATS on Saturdays. One of those non-covers was a Friday night game. And their only non-cover on a Saturday at home was week 2 against Georgia Southern. They lost a tight game 20-17. They outgained Georgia Southern 498 to 285. So what I'm saying is they haven't played a bad home game all year. And as Guns mentioned, Colorado State, total fool's gold. Colorado State is 5-0 ATS last 5. This team is not of the quality to be sweeping their ATS calendar. They were 0-3 first 3. So they're very much hot or cold. 0-3, 5-0. I think they're capped at this point in the market. And this is where you want to sell high. And as Guns mentioned, these covers in the last handful of weeks have been against almost exclusively bottom feeders. Favored at home against UTEP, caught San Jose State far after San Jose State looked good this year, now with a backup quarterback. Caught Air Force, who's the worst Air Force team in years. And last week did beat New Mexico in the game we discussed before, where there were a ton of yards, no points. Moral of the story, New Mexico is not good as an underdog. So this is a very fraudulent Colorado State team. They're way too hot. Nevada's upstart. They play well at home on Saturdays. It's prime time, the last game kicking off in week 10, and it is a collaboration play. The Shark and the Gun. Moneyline Nevada plus 110. I'm officially on plus 2.5. 30 minutes in the books, the fastest college football content you will find on the internet. I guarantee that. 10 total official plays on this week's broadcast. Excuse me, 9. Actually, no, 10, because you have money line. I have plus 2.5. So 10 official plays. Vandy plus 7.5 for me. Old Dominion minus 2.5. Nebraska in the first half minus 3.5. Wyoming, New Mexico over 60.5. Nevada plus 2.5. GunzPicks at noon. Minnesota minus 1.5 early week 3 now. 3 o'clock, Marshall minus 10.5. New Mexico minus 7.5. SMU also minus 7.5, fading Pittsburgh in the late night collaboration special. Nevada plus 110. We appreciate you guys immensely taking time out of your Friday night to hang out with us. We know there's a lot going on in life. You could be at the bar. You could be doing a hell of a lot of things. We love to bring you guys the energy, the conversation, the picks, and the hype. Pleasure working with you, Guns. As always, close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, shout out to the chat that was in here today. LVCC Bruno Stacks himself. I'll see you tomorrow, buddy, on Pub Sports. And then we have Spanky Weber in the building. Of course, everybody that's been on the chat today, want to make sure I give the proper shout outs. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channels, the Shark and Water Station channel and the GunzPicks channel, especially this video here. If you're watching this video live, you're watching on YouTube, you got to hit the thumbs up. You got to get the likes up, baby. That's how we get in the algorithm of all algorithms that YouTube seems fit. So we can be in the sports petting zeitgeist and get some new subscribers. You are the ones that can help with that. And of course, you can check us out on X at GunzPicks, at Sharkin Sports 88. Make sure you follow us there as well. We will be back here on Sunday with the Extra Point Show NFL cards. So make sure you join us for that. And that's going to do it here for the Knowledge for College show. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, let's keep dancing. Yeah, bye.